Marker. All right, well, what's up, guys? Hey, I'm here with my friend Hayden today to talk to her a little bit about her story. So, Hayden, why don't you tell us, like, where you grew up, what school you went to, how many siblings you had, sports you played, all that good stuff.
All right. Hi, I'm Hayden. I went to Foothill High School. I have two little sisters, Bryce and Ty. They are 15 and 12. Yes, I'm the oldest. I'm 18, and I just graduated, so I feel pretty cool. And I played soccer all throughout high school. But I was initially born in Kentucky, and then I moved out here and when I was in like third grade.
Ooh, so were you a Kentucky girl or a Cali girl?
I think I'd have to say I'm a California girl now, but I still cheer for Kentucky basketball, like die hard.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that's what left over.
Oh, yeah. I think the pigtails, too. Is that
yeah, a little bit.
That's hilarious. Okay, but more importantly, I need to know, when was our friendship solidified?
This is such an easy question. So when I was in 6th grade at Mix, you were an intern coming and you were like the camp counselor at Mix. Yeah. And we were in the cafeteria and they had these miniature chocolate pies. And you go, Hayden, would you let me smash one in your face? And I was like, only if you let me do it to you. And you were like, okay. And so I got 2 pies and I smashed one in your face and it was like all in your beard. It was disgusting. And then you were like, all right, now it's your turn. You smashed it in my face, dragged it upwards into my hair. Just chocolate pie everywhere. And 6th grade Hayden was like, this is the coolest man that has ever lived.
That's hilarious.
That's when I was like, I want to be friends with
Oh
Taylor.
my goodness. So if anybody wants to be friends with me, just pie me in the face.
Just right in the face. That's the
and then it'll solidify it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, tell us a little bit of your story. So, like, growing up, like church, not going to church, like how it was following Jesus, like, you know, during middle school, high school, like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm actually the pastor's daughter. So I kind of grew up like in the church, going to church every Sunday. But until we moved out to Ventura in 3rd grade, before Mission, we just, would go to church all the time. My parents were super involved. But Mission is kind of the church I feel like I grew up in. And so we were in the movie theater. I'd help like move stuff in, move stuff out. I was super involved with it. And then as soon as I was old enough, I started helping out in Mission Kids. And, then eventually as I grew up, I started helping in students. So I've been super involved with church, but I felt like I didn't really own my faith and like till middle school. So that's when I was like, oh, I believe this for myself and not just because my parents do. Yeah. And they never forced me to believe anything. So it was a good journey that I went on, like early 7th grade, late 6th grade, like, oh, I believe in God because I want to believe in God. And like, I love this community and I love like having a father that loves me unconditionally. And that's when I really owned it for myself. But yeah, I grew up in the church and like loved it so much. And then I never went to a Christian school after I came here. So it's definitely different going to public high school and like public middle schools and like still trying to like find my identity in God when there's so much like influence from other friends and other people that are great people but don't necessarily believe what I believe. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's even kind of what we're talking about today is like, who do we let have an influence on us? Like, we can't be someone who gains a following if we're not following after somebody. So how would you even like talk through that, like being in middle school and high school, like who did you listen to? How did you navigate like listening to following Jesus versus following after your friends or teachers or whoever else?
For sure. Yeah. So definitely like I think 6th grade was the point that I really started actually caring what people thought about me, because that from elementary to middle school, that's kind of the bigger like change. Like I was like, oh wait a minute, like it matters. And that's when I kind of got into this unintentional people pleasing cycle. Like I wanted everyone to like me, whether that was like, my friends, my parents, teachers, my seat partner in science, like the cafeteria ladies. I was like wanted everyone to like me. And if they didn't like me, I was like super insecure and was like, oh my gosh, like I'm of course they don't like me. Like, getting into this downward spiral of like comparison was a lot as I kind of got into like 8th grade. And that was just like super detrimental for me. But yeah, the people pleasing stuff was kind of like a big part of why I was like, it was hard for me to believe what God said about me because I was believing what anybody said about me. And so I really I didn't make having important people a priority, like speaking into my life, until 8th grade, when I realized, there's a quote and it's like, you are what the most important people in your life believe about you. And that really hit me 8th grade when, this is story time, at Move, it was a camp. I love camps. They're great. So I was so glad that this happened at Move. A leader came up to me and she was like, hey, Hayden, I just want to let you know, like, I've been praying for you, and I just wanted to let you know that I think that you need to be reminded that you're set apart for God's plan. And those words, set apart, like, that changed everything. Like, I was like, whoa, God has a plan specifically for me, so it shouldn't really matter that much what other people think about me. So that's when I started, like, actually listening to like what my parents were saying about me, what my sister said about me, what you were saying about me and my other leaders, and then like my best friend Maisie, what she was saying about me. And the more that like those people told me I was like called and like beautiful and trustworthy and like fun, like that's when I more started to see what God said about me. So like having those people, those foundational people in my life that were constantly speaking God's truth like about me to me, that's what made me really realize my identity as like a loved daughter of God, which really, that's changed everything. And that like core going from 8th grade into high school and having that foundation of like, oh, I'm a loved child of God first, that really helped the people pleasing and the comparison. And obviously I still struggle with it because everyone does, but it's easier to get out of that downward spiral because of the people that are speaking God's truth to me even when I don't feel it myself. So
that's good. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. So what would you say to someone if they feel like they don't have those people like that are speaking life or reminding them of God's truth about them? Like, what would you say to them?
I know this kind of sounds funny, but like, find them. I think that a big part of that is vulnerability and being able to let someone compliment you and let someone be close enough to you that they can see those things. Like how I said like earlier, how like it really hit 8th grade, and that leader started talking to me and praying about me because I opened up to her and told her what I was like struggling with. So there's like a lot of courage in having to be vulnerable like that, but the payoff is amazing because then you let people see you for who you really are, and then it's even better because then they're seeing who God created in you, and like that's just, it's a whole new way of being known, and it's so much more personal, but it's so much better, and it's freeing, like, honestly.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's even why we do small groups, like, is so that way people have those people to speak life and truth into them, which is crazy. So even like today we're looking at the story of like the nation of Israel, you know, and this influencer, this leader Gideon is about to be called up, but before that we kind of see what has gotten them to the place that they are now, where they haven't been following God. They've been worried about following after like everything everyone around them is doing, all of the other nations, all their friends, all the people at school, whatever. And then it gets to this point where God says like, you have not listened to me. Do you feel like you've ever been in a season where you're like, I don't feel like I'm listening to God? And then like, how did you get out of that? Was that,
that season kind of happened, I think it was like this last year, like about to go into my senior year. And that's because I realized I had a problem with like stuffing down my emotions. So if I was like angry, sad, embarrassed, like felt shame or like insecure, I just pack it in, not open up, not let it out or anything like that. And then like once that all piled up in me, whatever emotion I felt, that all of that would just, so if I got angry at like my mom, suddenly everything that I had packed up was angry and like that taking that out on the people that I cared about most, which I didn't want to be an angry person. That's not what I wanted, and that's not what I thought that I was. So that was when I realized, oh, I'm not really listening to God or the people closest to me, because I wasn't opening up about that. I was just letting myself get cold and hard and angry and then blowing up, and then cold and hard and angry, then blowing up, and over. And so I finally opened up about that, of course, at a camp. And so I remember I had a conversation with you about, I don't want to be angry and I feel embarrassed that I'm struggling with this. And then I talked to one of my close friends about it. Like, I feel like I'm packing things in, and I feel like I don't want to show my emotions that much. I'm embarrassed, all of that. And then that night, the topic of the night was like emotions you're struggling with. And anger was one of them on the board. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, how does that of course it perfectly coincided.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, and there was a moment after someone had taught, and it was like, if you are struggling with envy, like, please stand up. People would stand up. And sadness, please stand up. And then it was like anger. And I was like, ooh, this is the moment. Because if I didn't stand up, no one would know except for like you and Maisie. So I could have kept it in and packed it down. And like kind of fallen back into that pattern again. Or I could have stood up and let myself be vulnerable like that and let people in so they could hold me accountable like God calls us to do, like have people around us. And so I'm like sitting there and, it's like, all right, if you struggle with anger, stand up. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I stood up for that and then talked about it that night. Like, I followed up. I didn't just let that moment stand alone and let that be it. I talked to my youth leader after and was like, I stood up for this and here's how I'm feeling, really struggling with this. And I think that moment of standing up or like kind of putting myself out there is what got me back with like, okay, these people know me and love me and care about me, and so does God. So there's no reason for me to harbor like this anger or like resentment or even embarrassment about that, because anger is kind of a weird thing to talk about. It's like, totally. I got really mad at my 12-year-old sister. Like, how, that's kind of embarrassing. So that being able to talk about that is kind of what made me realize like, oh, I haven't been listening. I haven't been putting myself in a position where I'll succeed, like with God and with others.
Yeah, so, that's good. It's funny that sometimes when God's like, you haven't been listening to me, the first thing you want to do is, so go tell somebody that. Go talk about it. Like, wait a minute. That's exactly what I need to do. Shoot. So say you're talking to somebody who is like, I don't think that I can be an influencer. Like, I don't think that I can make an impact, like, for God's kingdom. I don't think that I can make an impact on other people. What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's important to like first address that is like talking bad about yourself. Anybody can be an influencer, 100%. So there's this video that I saw a while ago, and it's like this guy's dancing at a music festival, completely alone, huge crowd of people. He's just dancing, and then the video pauses. It's like, do you think that this man is a leader? And everyone's like, yeah, he's a leader. He's starting something. And then they push play on the video, and then another person joins him. Like, so there's two people dancing, and it's like this person is just as much a leader as this person because he's making what he's doing something bigger. And then three more people join, and they're like, these three people are as much of leaders as these people are. And then more people join, and they're like, these people are just as much as leaders as these people because they're making the movement bigger. So I think that when you talk about being an influencer, that doesn't mean being the first to do something or to do something new. Being an influencer is about making this movement of kingdom work bigger. So whenever you join and however you join, to use like what God's given you, that's what makes you an influencer. So anyone can be an influencer. All you have to do is put yourself into the mix.
That's good.
Which is hard, but it's really like anyone can do that. You can totally do it.
It's taking a risk and being vulnerable.
For sure.
I think what's so cool is like everyone is following somebody, even like we're talking about today. Like, if we care more about getting followers instead of following after Jesus, that's whenever it's wrong. Like, so we're all going to be jumping into the dance party at some point. And so we got to like be one of the people to follow after Jesus and then let people see that and join in with us.
100%.
So, it's pretty cool.
When's he going to clap? Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Do we clap?
No, I don't think we actually.
I wanted to clap.
But I'll do it anyway. So in middle school and high school, it is so easy to be obsessed with thinking about like being liked or wanting people to follow after you or wanting people to, you know, see you as this like amazing person. What would you say to somebody that is like, I'm not that, or struggles with even, some of that stuff?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I struggle with that. Like everyone, that's not something that they're going through alone. And also, I would say I don't think wanting to be liked is an inherently bad thing. I think that it's natural for you to want people to like you and want to like connect with people like that and have like this mutual like, oh, we're so great, we're friends. So I think that what matters is like the foundation and inner work you do before. So if your main goal or core is to have people like you without knowing first that God loves you for who you are, then that changes your whole perception of wanting to be liked, and that need is way more than it needs to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You're constantly trying to get more of that. Like, oh, I want this person to like me. Now I want this group of people to like me. Whereas if you know that God likes you and loves you at first, then it changes that ballgame, because then you're wanting to like others first and then letting them like you. So it changes, it flips it on its head.
Yeah.
So you're not chasing that feeling, you're wanting to give it.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
That's what I think about that.
That's cool. Whenever we let God's voice be the loudest voice in our life.
For sure.
It doesn't really matter what other people are saying.
Yeah. And like that light, like that comes with having that foundation is so apparent to like everyone. Like you have people in your life that you're like, wow, they're just the coolest, like nicest person. Like how could you not like them? And it's just because they might have a solid foundation with God. So
totally.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Gotta have a foundation.
So in middle school and high school for you, who are people that you're like, I think these were people that I'm supposed to have an influence on?
Yeah, so that's where, like, because I had such important people influencing me, that's when I was like, oh, I would like to influence people. So that's when, like, my youth leaders inspired me to want to become a middle school leader. So during high school, I was like, you know, I'm gonna kind of try to jump in. So, you know, having conversations with you about how I would like to help, and then sitting in on 6th grade small groups and me just being like the 9th grader, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like I'm only a couple years older than you, I'm not much wiser, but I want to like love on you and I want to like hang out with you, basically. Yeah. So I don't know, I think that there's like a lot of people, I wouldn't say that I'm like influencing, you know, like not doing that, but that I'm in relationship with, and we're both working towards a better relationship with God. And that like, that doesn't matter with age. So, I mean, you could say I have influence on my parents. You could say I have influence on my 2-year-old cousin. Like, yeah. So I think that just by being in a like healthy place with myself and being in a healthy place with the people that I let influence me and let their voices in and God's, that makes anybody fair game to be influenced.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Hayden, thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing your story. Like, it's been so cool to see you even grow in your influence and leadership and like who all God has made you to be. And so I can't wait to see you keep making an impact for the kingdom.
I'm Hayden Hickerson, and I'm an influencer in God's kingdom, and you can be too.
Nailed it.